Hey friends, welcome to the Adventures of Blink. I'm of course Blink and you can find me on GitHub right here. Make sure that if you enjoy this episode you click the like button, and please don't forget to subscribe so that you won't miss upcoming episodes. Last week we learned about pull requests and merge requests. The same thing, but they have a different name depending on which tool you're in. And we talked about collaboration and how managing these requests through the web interface of GitHub or GitLab enhances our ability to work together. But surely there's more to these tools than that, right? So today we're going to dig around deeper into GitHub and GitLab and see what other features we can find that might help us improve our collaboration situation. So what kinds of features am I talking about specifically? There are two really important things that come to mind that exist in both of the tools: issues and task management. Both GitHub and GitLab support issues, which are most commonly used for bug reports and feature requests. In a normal public repository, for instance, anyone can open an issue to say they've observed something or they're making a request. But of course, only collaborators with access to the project can work the problem and close it. An issue can be tagged and categorized by collaborators as well, which provides an easy way for you to search and sort through the list. Before we start exploring these features, it's really important to note that none of these things we talk about today are actually features of Git. They're strictly features that are at the GitHub or GitLab level, and they're not part of the core Git protocol. Thus, you can't interact with issues from your Git command line because it has no idea that they exist. So let's dive in, shall we? We'll start this week with GitLab and take a look at what it offers. So here you see our Season 3 repo that we built in GitLab. We've been using to sort of experiment with. If you want to mess with the Issues section, it's tabbed over here on the left. And so you just go to Issues, and you'll see I don't have any issues, so it doesn't have anything to display, and it just gives me a button to create a new issue, or I can import them from another place. I'm going to hit New, and we're just going to actually type something out here. So you can see I was starting a joke. I wish there was code in this repo. Since we're only dealing with text files, I thought it might be fun to have a little tongue-in-cheek in my first issue. So there are two types of issues that I can create in GitLab right out of the gate. I have an issue and an incident. An incident is going to be a little bit different because it implies that something's broken right this second and it's actively impeding me from using the software that's in the repository. So GitLab is actually suggesting some incident management, some system support type capabilities there to address things in a super timely fashion if you have a very time critical sort of issue. On the other hand, an issue is just something that I want to flag for discussion. This could be like a feature request. Hey, I noticed it's not capable of doing this. Or I noticed that this thing breaks sometimes. Or I wanted to alert you to the fact that you're using an out-of-date library or something like that. So you have the two options there to pick from. And so you describe your issue and you say, you should really write some code, Blink. And then you have the option to default assign. So if you're a collaborator on the project, if you're somebody who's part of the programming team, you can open an issue and pre-assign it to yourself. In this case, I'm going to leave it unassigned. But then you've also got the option to create milestones that this will be attached to, and labels. And so these are both empty because I've not used them before. And then you can select a due date if there's one that's applicable. But I'm going to just create the issue blank without any of that extra stuff, and you can see kind of what pops up here. So you have the ability for other issues to be linked to this issue. They can either be child issues that are breaking down the big problem into smaller pieces so that you can start to hand them out to different programmers to work on if you have a big team. Or you can link items together to show that 3 people reported the same problem and we want to make sure that all of those people remain notified of the eventual resolution of the issue. And then there's the activity where I can add comments about what's going on. And this is just going to create sort of a forum feed there where you get the thread of activity entries that show what steps were taken. So this is for you to document your work as you're processing it. Maybe you're having a discussion about the quality of the request, or why it can't be done a certain way versus another way. All of that stuff you can do here to keep it in public and accessible to everyone on the project to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. And then, of course, you have buttons down here at the bottom. The comment will activate itself once you've filled out the field to add a comment, but you can close the issue as well. So as the person who opened it, I have the capability to close it, to say, hey, I'm sorry, this is no longer needed. I opened it accidentally, or whatever the case was. Or as a person who's working the issue from the inside, you can close the issue to say, hey, we've now completed the work on this. And what's even cooler about that is you can link this up to a pull request so that your issue closes when the pull request is merged, or in this case, it's a merge request. Sorry, I'm using the wrong terms because I forget which tool I'm in. But that's a really cool feature that you can say, hey, I had a merge request for this. And you can see up here, you even have the ability to create a merge request from it, so that it will start the process of building out, whatever the solution is. And so when you get done with that and that merge request gets approved and merged, it will automatically close the issue and notify all the people involved, all the people related to it, so that they get that update of what's going on. So that's what there is about an issue. But what if we wanted some of that other detail? You can see down here we have the ability to create milestones. And a milestone is simply a tag that says we're going to put all of these things together, like if we wanted to create a release. So we're actively working on version 2.0. And in the process of doing that, we're going to incorporate the fixes for a certain number of issues. Now, let's say we had 100 issues reported out here. We may not be able to fit all 100 into version 2.0. We might have to break up the work, and then 2.1 or 2.2 or 2.3 even, or even maybe as far as 3.0 would eventually address some of those issues. But if you create milestones, you then have the ability to tag an issue as being related to this milestone, which will help the team understand. If I'm a programmer who shows up here at the repository and says, what could I work on today? I have a couple hours, I want to do some work. I can go pick out issues that are related to the appropriate milestone. So, hey, I'm really focused on, we want to get 2.0 out the door as soon as possible. I'm going to go find the issues that are tagged as 2.0. Another way that you can look at this is through issue boards. And so if you look at this perspective, you can see our open issue actually exists on a Kanban board now. I should probably cover Kanban at some point for those who aren't familiar. But the short version of Kanban is that it's a quick way to see work laid out visually, so that we can understand how much stuff we still have to do. And the Kanban usually works in columns. You have a column on the left here, which is open, and then you have one on the right, which is closed. Now, I could add other lists to this along the way, and maybe I do, I have to do extra work there to set that up. But I could create another column here that says things that are on hold, or things that need a vendor's input on, stuff like that, where I can start to categorize work and say, I have a bunch of things in this column, I have a bunch of things in that column, I don't have any over here. And then, of course, I have a closed column where I say, maybe I've addressed this issue and I'm ready to just close it. And so it gives me the ability to visually experience, I can drag the issue into the column that I want it to be in. And that gives me a way to quickly understand the work that's available on the board. And you can see when I do that closed, I can go over here to issues and it says there are none open because I closed it. So the idea behind an issue board is really important in terms of making work visible to people. And when you have a group of people who are all trying to work on something, that is a critical skill. Making the work visible so that the people doing it understand where they need to focus, and the people who are managing it Often you have your management, your leadership folks who are not in the code every day, but they have to be aware of how things are moving. And so they want to be able to see what the progress is on certain things and whether we're stuck on something, and analyze that stuff quickly. And a Kanban board can give you a quick way to do that for a team that's working in a repository. So there you have it. That's how GitLab manages this stuff. And you've got tons of extra capabilities built into this. You can track the amount of time that was spent. You can label it, as we've seen before. And maybe I need to dig over here and find the labels. So if you go under the Manage tab, there's labels. And so you could create something. For instance, a very common one to put is a good for beginners, especially in a project that's open to the public. When somebody's first joining a project and they don't know how everything works yet, it's hard to know which kinds of issues they could pick up to work on. And so creating a label like this, and we'll pick yellow or something for it. And so we create this label. And if I go back here to the issues, I'm going to reopen this just so we have it to play with. And I'm going to add a label over here on the side. Oops, wrong button. And I can do good for beginners. And so this issue will now be tagged on the issues board. And somebody could come in and say, oh, look, I'm a beginner. I don't know much about this project. Let me click on that and I can work on that because they think that's probably a good one for a beginner to start on. What's even cooler is because it's labeled, you now have that as a filter. And so you can add the filter. You see it added up here at the top. Label is good for beginners. Hey, great. Now I can find the issues that I can work on easily as a beginner in the project. So there's something to consider as you start to expand your influence and you have extra people join your project, that this is how you can get some of that stuff to work. So you can see that GitLab has a very in-depth approach to managing work and being able to address issues and turn them into actionable things for a programmer on the team to come pick up and do stuff with. Let's go see how GitHub handles it now. So here we are in the Season 3 repository on the GitHub site. And if we want to address issues, we start with the Issues tab right here. And you'll see it shows there are no results because there are no issues in this repository. So I'm going to go on ahead and create our issue again. Add code. Please write some code. Blink. Okay. And in the same manner that GitLab allowed you to label things and create types and assign things, you can do all of the same work here. It's got projects and milestones. We'll talk about those in a minute. But let's just get an issue on the board. And so now if I go to the Issues tab, I have that here. Now under Labels, GitHub has a bunch of labels predefined that are just sort of suggestions. You can go edit this list completely, so you're not tied to anything. And you can see like the GitHub version is good first issue. So we'll do this the same way we did the other. And it says, that's me filtering, not me actually using. So if I go back here, what I can do is go to the labels, and I'll go on ahead and add the good first issue to that. And so now you can see that it's tagged as a good first issue. However, GitHub takes a slightly different approach to the way that it starts managing this work on the board. You see, in GitHub, they have this concept of organizations. And so the way that organizations function is to group repositories together. GitLab does something similar, but it's a little bit different in the way that it's controlled. You could see on the GitLab board that it was very much the issue board is part of this repository. But in GitHub, it's called projects. And a project can exist outside of a repository and in fact spread across several repositories. So I'm going to come in here and do a new project. And you get some options in terms of creating it. And so how would you like this to work? Generic bug tracker, team planning, planning toward a specific feature release, so you're creating a project around that. Here's the Kanban view. There's iterative development, there's a team retrospective, there's a team roadmap. We're going to pick the Kanban view for now. So you can see my untitled project has appeared now, and it's created a really nice Kanban board with a backlog of work and which items are ready to be worked on, which ones are actively being addressed right now, which ones have been completed but need to be reviewed, and then which ones are marked as completely done. But you'll notice that no issues actually appear here, and it's because the project is separate from the repository. It doesn't naturally go get the information. It waits for you to make that distinction. So if I go down here on the backlog to add item, you'll see I get the instructions. I can either start typing to create a new item from scratch, or I can type a pound, a hashtag, whatever you want to call the thing, octothorpe, to select a repository. So if I type that, I can pick from my repositories that are in the same organization. And so I can go here to season 3, and you'll see that there's an issue. You'll see that there's a merge. You'll see that there's a note to create a new issue on that board. And there's a button here to add items from season 3. And so I can go over here to the add items, and then I can pick out of the list. Now the merge is, I thought we'd already completed it, but maybe it's found an active merge. I think, no, that's merge number 1, so it should be okay. That one's already been merged and it doesn't need to be pulled in. But we know this issue is active, so we're going to add that. And then we can close this down, and you'll see that we now have it on the board just like we did in GitLab. I can click on this and go into it, and it allows me to manage the issue from here. So I can continually update it. I can change the tagging and all of that stuff. And once all of that information is where it needs to be, then we can say, hey, this issue is ready to be worked. And so we move it to there, and somebody comes and picks it up, and then they would move it to in progress. And then once it's in progress, they would say, hey, I've finished the work, and they'd move it to in review. Somebody would review it, check it off, ensure that it's been pushed up. And when it's been merged into production and you've done your PR and all that, then you can mark it as done, and it goes on the board that way. And then of course you have tons of features here in order to be able to see what's going on across your project. You've got analytics and insights here where you can start to see, oh look, some work has been completed today. So that's what a burn up is about. You can change that type of chart to work in different ways. And so you can build out analytics that support the way that your team does work. There you have it. We have the same capabilities here, and it's important to realize that all of this is freely included in both GitLab and GitHub. You get the ability to manage issues in this way just as part of having repositories. And so you're not charged extra to be able to experiment with this. I would encourage you as a programmer to try this in your personal repository, create some stuff, and see how it all plays out. So let's take a look at how to build issue templates. We'll start here in GitHub. And so what you want to do is go over to the Settings tab. And if you scroll down here on the general page, the first page you come to, you'll see a section called Features, and inside there is Issues. And so inside that is a button over here that says Set Up Templates. This is how you can organize issue templates. And it brings you to this interface where you get a chance to just pull from a drop-down. They give you some suggestions. You can create a bug report or a feature request, or you can customize to be something else entirely. I've actually seen this used as a way to handle other kinds of tickets. If you have like a generic repository that your team works out of for most of their code, but you also provide other services, configuration services or consulting or something like that, you could actually make it so that a request for those kind of services just show up as a template here where you can create issues that have that data prepackaged. Let's go on ahead and start just by creating a bug report. And you see it was that fast, but this is what GitHub includes by default in the concept of a bug report. You can of course modify this as much as you like. There's an edit button right there next to it. But they give you these questions that they want the user to answer. And so the idea is that when somebody hits create an issue, they pick bug report, and they're going to get this list exactly as you see it here, and they fill in the blanks with whatever's going on, like whatever details they have to provide. So I'll close that and I'll propose the changes because the interesting thing about the way this works is it actually saves it as a commit within your repository. So hitting the commit changes button here is going to create a .github folder within my repo. And that .github folder will have issue templates inside it, and that will be where any issue templates are allowed to live. In fact, before I do this, I'll go on ahead and create a feature request one too, and you can see that has different questions on it. So now I'm going to have both of these things appear. And if I just do commit changes, you now see that it's committed into my main branch a .github folder with issue template underneath it. And inside of issue template are markdown files for each of these types of templates. So there's a bug report and there's a feature request. And now if I go over here to issues and I say give me a new issue, I get a new dialog. This is now GitHub has altered its behavior based on configuration files in my repository. And I can choose between a feature request and I can choose between a feature request, a bug report, and a simply blank issue where I customize everything on the fly. And then of course it gives me an option to be able to edit the templates too. But let's choose bug report, and you'll see it does exactly what we described earlier. You're going to get a list of questions here that need to be answered. And there's no real validation around this. It's just a template that guides the end user. This is really handy if you're dealing particularly with the public. You've got a public repository and you could get an issue from anyone in the world. When that happens, they don't necessarily know what information you need, so you can guide them in the direction that's really important so that you get better information from every request. I'm not going to save the issue here. It was just an opportunity to show you how it works. But let's go over to GitLab and kind of perform the same thing and see how GitLab handles it. So in GitLab, you have the ability to create a new file. And here you're actually going to do it just based off the name of the file. So you're going to put it in .gitlab, just like you did .github on the other side. You have issue_templates, and then you name it. And so the name that I've picked here, you can see as I scroll over, is bug_report. So I've just created something called a bug report. This is a bug report. And I might ask them for screenshots, and I might ask them for steps to recreate the error. And we'll save that as our template. So now I've got a new file here. We'll call this a issue template. And we're going to commit directly to the main branch. And so there you go. You've now created that and it's part of your repository. But if I go here to issues and I say create a new issue, I now have the ability to choose a bug report right out of the list. And so it populates with that information and I can fill out the issue just like before. So those are the steps in both systems to be able to create issues that are now templated to request the end user give us better information. So today we've only scratched the surface of these tools. You can continue to customize this extensively to make sure that it allows you to work in the way that you find most comfortable. And in fact, while this isn't a feature of Git, it's nonetheless really valuable to you to be able to have this directly embedded in your repository. And that's going to wrap up today's episode. So remember, if you learned something today, click the like button. That way I know that you found this valuable and it helped you along your journey. And of course, don't forget to subscribe because That way you won't miss any upcoming episodes, and you'll be able to follow along with Season 3 as we continue to explore the features of Git, GitHub, and GitLab. So I am really grateful that you've joined me for today. It's been a lot of fun. It's always great to walk through these things and see how the tools work and explore together. And I hope you're enjoying these adventures as much as I am. We'll see you next time.